Welcome to Built in the Bluegrass, a podcast dedicated to cool stuff made in Kentucky. We want to share with you how it was made, why it was made, and the story behind it. And now, here's your host.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Built in the Bluegrass. No, it's been a little bit, but we want to get back into it with an episode here. It's a little bit outside of the usual that we go with. We usually focus on what is being made in Kentucky, but I thought this was pretty pertinent to manufacturers and specifically in Kentucky, and they need to know about this. So without further ado, Rich, how are you?
Good. How are you, Tommy?
Doing well. Rich is the president of LockStock Securities, and he's here to tell you all what you all need that you maybe don't think you need, right?
For sure. You mentioned that this is a departure from who you're usually talking to about manufacturing and building things, but we're here to make sure to empower that people are able to continue to build things smoothly without interruption. That's our prime focus when we are dealing with when we're helping our manufacturing clients. That is the main concern. We want to make sure that they are able to continue to do business without any type of interruption from their IT systems or their OT systems, their operational technology systems, the machines and computers that are actually doing the manufacturing processes.
For sure. A lot of times we say manufacturers are focused on building their widget, and they don't often look up to see what's kind of going on around them. A lot of the time, they don't know what they don't know, right?
Sure.
Well, how did LockStock get started, and what is your day-to-day looking like these days?
Sure. So I've been in cybersecurity now for about 20 years with different areas of focus, but really zeroing in on that focus back in about 2017. And when you move into the IT field, you end up getting a lot of calls from recruiters. And after saying no to recruiters after job offer, I finally just asked the question, would you consider a consultancy instead? And that's how we were born.
Nice. Work for yourself a little bit there, huh?
Yeah.
Nice. You gave a little bit of inspiration. Are you from Kentucky? Why did you choose Kentucky for LockStock?
I am not from Kentucky. I moved to Kentucky back in 2018. Again, came out here for a job. I was offered a job to move out to Kentucky. From Philadelphia, from the East Coast. Not a lot of, I came out here back in maybe 2014, 2015. I came out to Nashville, Tennessee. I had a friend who was a police officer who moved out and joined the police force in Nashville, their metro department. And we took the road trip, which was fun. We had a young child at the time, and we had a blast making that road trip. And on the way back, I was looking at different ways to go back to the East Coast, to Philadelphia. And there were a couple of ways to go about doing it. Head across Tennessee and go up through Knoxville and West Virginia. Or we could pop up into Bowling Green and say that we've been to Kentucky. And that's what we did. So we took that route. We went up through Bowling Green and headed east from there. And my wife and I were just saying, yeah, we could live here. We really liked how clean it was. It's just very beautiful. Out of coincidence, got a job offer out here. I made the trip, checked out Louisville. Really nice place, really nice neighborhoods, and brought the wife over. We looked at a couple different places, and we landed in a really nice spot. And we have since grown our family. It's a wonderful place to grow a family, and we've made some really great friends out here too.
Nice. Did you stop by the Corvette Museum on the way through?
We didn't at that time, but we have since traveled down to Nashville many times and made sure to go to the Corvette Museum. And I got to tell you, I tell everybody who's thinking about going there, It's a miracle. The disaster that happened was one of the most interesting parts of the museum itself.
The sinkhole.
The sinkhole. I mean,
Yeah.
you get to look down on the floor and see where the sinkhole was, and they've got the video and all the things and showing all the cars that landed down into the sinkhole.
Yeah.
It was a really great experience.
Of all places a sinkhole could open, right underneath the Corvette Museum. That's
We've got a
very
little bit
crazy.
of fear in us that could happen anywhere in this
Oh,
area.
yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, we'd actually interviewed Corvette not that long. I guess it's almost been 2 years, but they won the CAM Coolest Thing Made in Kentucky the first year they did it. And Corvette won that year. And we had the pleasure of interviewing one of their guys, and it was a really cool process to get their insight on
Yeah, I
the
mean,
direction of
Corvette being a part of Kentucky is such a big deal. Globally, you've got the old Top Gear television show, right?
Mhm.
And there's this one episode where Jeremy Clarkson was driving around in this beautiful, beautiful sounding Audi. What was that car? The one with the V10,
Oh, like the Iron Man car?
like the Iron Man car. I think that
Yeah.
was an electric one, but
I don't remember.
I can't believe I can't remember what model.
Like
it
the
was.
R8, maybe?
The R8, yes.
Yeah.
The Audi R8. So he's driving around saying how perfect this car is and just wonderfully engineered. Everything's great. There are a few quirks here and there, not like Doug DeMuro level set of quirks, but Jeremy Clarkson level. And then they start doing the production, cutting the scene, and he just, blows by in a Corvette ZR1. And he's like, and the summary was, the R8 is great, but get the Corvette.
Right.
He said the Corvette is completely impractical. It's ridiculous, which is exactly why you should buy it. I think
Yeah,
what the
100%.
punchline was, yeah.
So we talked about why you chose Kentucky, but obviously at any
We talked about
point,
why I stayed here. I stayed here again, that network of friends, great schools out here, great place to raise a family. And in terms of doing business, it's a very tight network. So if you want to meet somebody over here, you might be only one or two people removed from that. Everyone knows everyone here. Respect goes a long way. Reputation goes a long way. On the East Coast, there's a lot of competition, and because of that, everyone seems to have their guard up whenever meeting someone. But there's a very nice vetting process out here. So running a business in Kentucky is, I would recommend it highly if you're considering anywhere across the country. This is a great place with great people. And if you are running a successful business and helping people be successful, it goes a long way.
for sure. Yeah, we often we have that same question too. We ask that same question to everybody that we interview. Why Kentucky? Why did you start business here, and what keeps you here? And that's the consensus answer is oftentimes it's just a great place to live. One, relatively low cost of living, and people are loyal. You can get employees here that stay with you for as long as you're in business, as long as that mutual respect is there. So that is often, even, I mean, anything from a 2-life company to thousands of lives. That's kind of crazy to think that it's the same kind of mantra across the board on any company that is here in Kentucky, which is kudos to us for keeping that going. Let's get into another question here. How do characteristics of Kentucky influence your work with manufacturers? I guess we kind of touched that a little bit, but get more into the some of the companies you've maybe worked for or worked with, and kind of what drives that for you.
So there's not too much unique about manufacturing problems in Kentucky. They're pretty much universal. And although we do have great clients here in Kentucky, we are not just limited to Kentucky. We are across the country. And we're able to make those comparisons. What type of issues are you experiencing? And they're usually universal. They are compliance requirements. And that comes from a variety of ways. So compliance in terms of regulatory compliance, some sort of law or some sort of regulation that is out there that says that you need to have your cybersecurity in order. Then there is the compliance of doing business, we'll say. So suppose you're a company that's working with another company. We'll just say, for argument's sake, for simplicity, you're a smaller company, you're a startup, and you want to work with this big company over here. This big company over here has a full cybersecurity team, and because of their largeness and enterprise levelness, for lack of a better word, they have very stringent cybersecurity compliance requirements. And what's happening is a company over here, they don't have as strict compliance requirements. So if someone were to compromise this company, this one would be very difficult to compromise. It'd be very difficult for a hacker or someone who has bad intentions to break into this company because they've got all kinds of systems in place. But if someone's able to break into this company and gain access through that company here, that's where you find your weakest links. And there's a lot of compliance challenges here where this large company is saying, we need you up here. And there's a lot of cost and there's a lot of unknown associated with that. So there's a lot of educational component there. On the manufacturing side, one of the top challenges is the IT versus OT security. So IT versus OT, which is, again, we mentioned, so IT is your data, it's your computers that are doing your day-to-day work, email, things like that. And the OT is more of the machines that are doing the work to manufacture what you mentioned before, the widgets. And there's few different perspectives and concerns there. And if you apply the OT security to the IT security, that's bad. But more commonly, if you apply the IT type of security over to the OT security, that's bad as well. One thing, kind of to summarize it, for the IT side, you're concerned about your data. You want to make sure that if you're doing business, right, and you've got a book of business, you've got a list of clients there with their names, points of contact names, and telephone numbers, and how much your contracts are and contract language. You want to protect all of those things. If that were to be exposed to someone who's not supposed to see them, it would be problematic for you. If someone were to get access to your database and lock that thing down, encrypt it and say, hey, give me $1 million and I'll give you the encryption key, which is a very common attack these days, that ransomware attack. Mm-hmm. On the OT side, so that the biggest concern there is protecting that data, protecting things from that happening. On the OT side, we want to make sure everything is kept running all the time, no interruptions whatsoever, and we want to make sure we're preserving human life. So when you heard about the Colonial Pipeline incident, did you recall hearing about this a few years ago?
I don't know if I did.
Okay, Colonial Pipeline incident. There was a breach on the Colonial Pipeline, and that incident was kind of a wake-up call of how much power is involved with these more operational kind of infrastructure-based technologies. Someone having access to that, to our water supply, to our electricity, to our manufacturing processes, to our overall critical infrastructure. These are big concerns, and we need to make sure that we're taking both sides, that internet technology and the operational technology, into consideration.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I guess it's kind of trying to keep things in closed loops, so to speak.
For the operational technology machines, you mean?
Yeah, like I guess, say somebody gets the ransomware, you're that smaller company, you want to avoid that, you just want to make for sure that obviously they can get in, but having the same standards, you're kind of wanting to match the standards for these smaller companies to, I guess, the larger ones, so they can do business more regularly.
Yeah. That's right. And so in order to do business, the smaller companies, they need to increase their cybersecurity capability. And for the larger companies, they need to consider who they're taking on as vendors and making sure that they're up to snuff. They're able to be secure. One of the most famous incidents that is a good example of this is a few years ago, there was a big Target breach where tons and tons of customers were compromised. And so they did an investigation to find out where did that come from? Who was able to break into Target? Because Target has a full security team.
Mhm.
And it turns out that the original point of compromise was one of Target's HVAC servicing companies.
Oh man.
So someone's able to breach the HVAC company and then use that HVAC company, the credentials that they had to get into Target that were legitimate credentials, they were able to breach the customer data that way. So that's what that third party risk, that vendor risk is of top concern.
For sure. And we've realized that we're a third party vendor as well, and we went through the process here lately of getting all of those. I almost refer to them as the wormholes. Like, let's try to mitigate the wormholes, get those closed, and no access points for anybody to kind of get into our stuff, which is, like you said, incredibly important. Well, that's
Sure.
crazy.
Well,
HVAC.
I mean, the access points, right?
Yeah.
The access point, Target needed the HVAC company to access that. So it's an access point.
Mm,
And if you were to secure that access point, if you refer to it as a door, if you're to close that door, now the HVAC company can't get in to do their work. And you hear about this all the time with phishing. You've heard of that before, right?
yep. The pH phishing,
The
not
pH phishing,
yeah.
yes. So you have a company with employees, and someone is able to, one way or another, figure out how to get one of your employees' username and passwords. Okay? It's a door. They have access to your system. They're an
Mm,
employee that you vetted them. You did a background investigation. You want that person to be able to access your systems to do their job. But you don't want someone else having that same access. And that's what happens in a phishing situation. They get this, you have this person who's a legitimate person here who's supposed to be logging in, and someone else takes their credentials and logs in and does things that they're not supposed to do. So, yes, you want to make sure you're securing your access points so someone can't just walk in the door. But you also want to make sure that when that type of thing happens, that someone who isn't who they say they are gains access to their system, what you can do is analyze their behavior to see that they're doing things that they don't normally do and they're not supposed to do.
mm-hmm.
So it's more of a layered approach to make sure that people are only given enough access in order to do their job. And then if something strange is happening, then you have defenses in place to make sure that it doesn't get any worse.
Absolutely.
You're able to detect it, defend it, deny them further privileges and capabilities to do things that are worse than what they are already doing, which is compromising your system.
We talk about this a lot here on Built in the Bluegrass, that people don't realize, the listener or the end user doesn't realize that what they're holding in their hand, whether it's a pen or a cell phone, a cup of coffee, that was whatever's holding that cup of coffee was it was a raw material that pretty much came from the earth at some point or another, and that manufacturer has turned that material into a finished product that you're using. Can you tell us, how does LockStock support manufacturers in that process?
Sure. So what we do is we take an inventory of the processes that are required to go from that raw material to the finished product. Go through each of those processes, make sure that they are clear, make sure that they are explicitly made known, explicitly documented. And then we say what technology is required to make these business processes happen, what dependencies are required to make sure that these business processes are achieved. And then we take a look at, in terms of how long could we live without each of these business processes? What would the impact be? Could we go for something like an hour? If we were to lose this business process for an hour, would that not negatively affect our capability of getting this done within a particular amount of time? Or would there be, we would lose this for an hour, there wouldn't be a significant financial loss? Good example of this is like payroll. So if payroll is something that's typically processed every 2 weeks, right? So if today is the 15th and we were to lose our ability to do payroll, well, we've got about 13 or 14 days before we're going to start seeing the impact of that. So we're going to set a goal of getting that back up and running within 14 days. Whereas if you have something that's completing an action every second, then we're going to want to make sure that process is back up and running in seconds. So we go through each of the business processes, all the things that are required to run those business processes, and then we see how long we can live without those, and we start coming up with ways of alternative processes. Is there something else that we can spin up while this main process is down? Can we turn on a different machine? Can we use a different type of technology for this? Do we move to a manual, even in some cases? Do we move to a manual process while we are working to fix this problem? This whole process, by the way, is called a business impact analysis, and this is done on both, it can be done on the IT side and can also be applied for the OT side. So making sure that each process is understood, there are alternative processes in place, backups in place, goals that are explicitly set to meet those guidelines, to meet those deadlines and those goals. That's how we go from that. That's how we support going through the raw material to the finished product.
Gotcha.
This is Frank Jimley with the Kentucky Association of Manufacturers, proud sponsor of Built in the Bluegrass. For over 100 years, CAM has served our state's manufacturing industry through advocacy, workforce development, education, and training, as well as cost-saving benefits for members. Fighting for manufacturers is what CAM does best, representing the industry in both Frankfort and in Washington, D.C. Whether it's advocacy, offering discounts, or group health insurance, CAM has its members covered. Learn more and become a member by visiting cam.us.com.
With that said, where's a couple of places here in Kentucky where we can possibly see your impact on that without really realizing it?
Well, in that vein, I hope that you're not realizing the work that I'm doing, because I'm helping secure companies and keep them out of the news and keep them from losing their ability to do business. By nature of the business I do, which is there are three main concerns: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality is keeping your secret secret. Integrity is making sure that no changes are made that are unbeknownst to you. And availability is making sure that things are available to be used. In the vein of my business, I'm a high confidentiality-based business, so I keep my clients confidential. I do, in my case studies, describe the businesses themselves. And I help companies that are in manufacturing of aluminum, in the distillery business. We're also in the healthcare business, car manufacturing. We are in the automobile broker sector as well. We focus mainly on healthcare, financial, insurance, manufacturing, internet technology, and business services. And we have clients throughout the Louisville area, all throughout Kentucky and beyond.
Yeah, it's the old, you can almost call it a meme these days with IT on, you don't think you need them and when everything's going smoothly, but when some stuff's hitting the fan, they're probably not doing their job the best. And
well, I mean,
you're like, why did we hire these people?
It's so much a part of our daily world. I mean, right now we're on this podcast, right? So, and we're using Zoom. If Zoom were to go down, maybe we could spin something out. But I mean, we've got a relationship with Zoom. You have a paid subscription to Zoom. There's data involved with this podcast. Is there a reason for you to back this up? Zoom is already doing some backing up for you. But if I were maybe a more important and famous guest, you might want to come up with a backup plan to make sure that if Zoom were to lose your data, that you had a copy of it for yourself. You are using social media. What if you were to lose access to even your personal social media account? We'll use Facebook, for example. Or most people, Facebook they could probably live with. But LinkedIn, there's a lot of people that do business on LinkedIn. They find connections on LinkedIn. If they were to lose access to their LinkedIn and had to rebuild that from scratch, it would be a disruption even as they're rebuilding that. It's like, who is this person that is connected? I thought I was already connected with this person. Technology is such a big part of our everyday life. Even for our own personal use, we need to start thinking about strategies of protecting our information. So with the LinkedIn example, setting up two-factor authentication to make sure that no one else can just take over our username and password because our username and password is floating out there on the dark web. There was some other compromise, or somebody compromised some other username and password from some other site that we're visiting that we're reusing that password for on LinkedIn, which happens all the time. People are reusing passwords. So because technology is so much a part of our everyday lives, we need to think about what can we do to make sure that we're able to do what we want to do and what we need to do. And that's where cybersecurity comes in. That's what cybersecurity is. It is something that empowers you to do what you need to do with as little disruption as possible.
What philosophy or culture drives LockStock success, particularly in the big industries here in Kentucky?
Our culture is grounded in resiliency. We want businesses to be able to do what they need to do, to be able to thrive. There's already tons of challenges in business, from supply chain to keeping people employed, finding people to get the work done. Leadership. There's all types of challenges within business. Trying to reduce further challenges that come from the IT and OT networks and environments. So we're really driven by that idea of empowering businesses to be resilient, to prepare for the worst, and also be prepared to, if the worst does happen, what are we going to do now? To optimize getting back up and running quickly as possible and with minimal damage.
And this isn't necessarily your part of what you're doing, but yeah, there's a huge, we'll call it the training in the real life, what people in companies need these days in the manufacturing. There's a huge gap between what people are being told, even at the maybe high school level, what the education they need provide themselves an income here in Kentucky.
Right.
So the skilled labor, I guess we'll call it, is a huge gap, probably everywhere. But I think since Kentucky has a lot of these, they're almost tech jobs now to be in the manufacturing industry.
That's correct.
It's no longer you're not just pressing buttons to stamp out materials or anything like that. It's you're operating a machine, you're using a tablet, you're monitoring processes across the board. So
we do have a large impact on that as well, on employee, on their environment, from a variety of ways. One is we are, again, in terms of resilience, we want to make sure that people are able to do their job. And if they are bogged down by security policies and procedures that make them have to log into this screen and then that screen, and we got to make sure to have all these checks and balances, where we can instead have one point of entry for them and they give them all the access that they need. So it gives the employees a better experience. On the other side of it, there are also new challenges and risks from insider threat. So because this is almost everything has a piece of technology on it, we want to make sure that we're having better onboarding between making sure that we're doing very good background investigations that are more tailored to what the people are going to be doing, to making sure that when they are onboarded, that they are trained in what type of things they need to know from a cybersecurity perspective, what some things that they need to look out for some of what their responsibilities are, making sure that when that person is onboarded, they are given just enough privileges to do what they need to do and nothing more than that, giving them just as much data that they need to do to have access to. And then from an offboarding perspective, when someone leaves a company, we want to make sure that they lose those privileges immediately upon exit from that company to reduce risk from either malicious because they want to take revenge on the company, or just kind of like cleaning things up. We want to make sure that, oh, well, this person doesn't work here anymore, so no problem. We've got nothing to worry about. Well, if that account is just sitting around, those credentials are sitting around, someone can compromise that account without anyone even knowing it. So there's a lot of security that lives that you might not see. I mean, that's usually the best way to go that it happens is having it. You're doing your work seamlessly. Behind the scenes, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, I'll take it back to the usual memes for the IT guys, but they're the unsung heroes. You know, I guess you could say the less you see them, the better that they're working. Really, but I completely understand that. So what are you can say one thing, but there could be multiple. What's one thing that you wish manufacturers knew about cybersecurity, and why? We've touched on it. What do you think is the most important reason why they need to think about it?
Sure. Again, I'll go back to the resiliency and empowerment. You need it because it's going to make sure that you're able to do what you need to do, right? Without disruption, without problems. You're going to have seamless things in place. You're able to do what you need to do without disruption. You're going to find opportunities to automate things so that you're removing steps out that where mistakes can be made. Cybersecurity empowers those automation processes. Some things specific to cybersecurity there is a big difference between IT security and OT security. A lot of times when we are talking about cybersecurity, we're speaking in terms of IT security and we're giving reports on the IT security. We need to make sure that we're considering the OT security as well. We need to make sure that we're not doing the best practices in IT security are not necessarily the best practices in OT. For the IT side, again, it's about data. We want to make sure that data is very protected, keep it out of people's reach. On the OT side, data isn't so important as making sure that these machines are running. So if there's a compromise on the data side, it's less of concern. We're less concerned about patching on the OT side. We'll use old systems that haven't been patched in a long time because it's a different method of compromise, and we're really mostly concerned with keeping those machines running and keeping human safety up to snuff. Also, applying IT best practices to OT. Cross-functional things like passwords, because that you reusing a password thing, you can get away with it sometimes on the IT side, but you definitely don't want to reuse passwords from the IT side to the OT side. So all kinds of things that you can go over that manufacturers, I wish they knew about cybersecurity, especially where the IT and OT diverge, where there's some common ground and where they diverge. But I'd say the most important thing is how empowering the cybersecurity can be for you to make sure that you're able to do your job, you're able to be successful, and also how it increases your ability to form new business relationships through your reputation and meeting compliance requirements.
Yeah, I actually wrote down a second ago the ease of use for your business channels. One thing that you said earlier was you're a startup, you're a smaller company, maybe you're getting a contract with, say, Toyota or something. And obviously Toyota has different standards. So trying to match those standards and making sure those channels are quote unquote lubricated enough to make it easy for Toyota to do business with you instead of they're not going to
right,
deal
exactly
with you for
right.
your hassle.
And there's a reason for that, right? So if a bad actor were to compromise a startup and they say to the startup, give us $1 million and we'll give you access back to your system, that startup might not have $1 million. Whereas if you were to go to Toyota and demand $1 million for access to their data, their financial data, for instance, that a bad actor, they would probably have better luck with a larger company like Toyota getting that money, getting that ransomware paid. This happens often. So Toyota, they have defense mechanisms in place internally. If they're going to open it up to that smaller company, that creates a new vulnerability that they need to be concerned about. And we're talking about that startup, and we're talking about a large enterprise like Toyota. Then you've got your players right there in the middle. So we have our medium-sized manufacturing companies, our medium-sized companies across the board. They don't have a full cybersecurity team, but they do have $1 million that if they were to be hit with ransomware, they would be very happy to pay the $1 million to get access back to their system so they can continue to do business. So there's a lot of vulnerability there. There's a lot of opportunity for medium-sized businesses to get some outside consultants and to build some automated processes to secure from both sides.
Gotcha. I have another question for you.
Yeah.
And it's more so questions that you would ask a prospective client, a manufacturer or distillery. What question, just so it might pique interest and they could get with you, what questions would you ask a prospective client on their cybersecurity just to poke holes, I guess, and pique their interest of I probably should work with you.
Oh man, that's some secret sauce there you're asking for.
Yeah.
So cybersecurity is a complex topic. It's something that scares people sometimes. You read about the news, there's a lot of fear-based things. So try to keep things very high level and ask some open-ended questions. What are you doing about your cybersecurity now? What keeps you up at night? What is it? What compliance challenges are you facing now? If I want to kind of measure where they are at, measure their maturity level, I'll start asking things like, when was the last time you did a disaster recovery exercise? What lessons did you learn from that exercise? Well, if they never did a disaster recovery exercise, then they don't have any lessons learned, right?
Right.
And it tells me that they're at that level of maturity where they've got a gap. Having a disaster recovery plan is low-hanging fruit. It's something that everyone should have, at least from a high level. We've got a disaster recovery plan. We did an exercise last year, and one of the lessons we learned is that we could use some better phishing protection, something like that. If those are the responses, then I'd start asking some deeper questions into what that disaster recovery plan looks like. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's like you don't know you need it until something bad happens,
That's exactly right.
Right.
So I try to put it in the frame of discovering what it is, what are some of the challenges that you're receiving, just from a business perspective. What are some of the challenges you're experiencing? Yeah, you're here talking to me on the cybersecurity side, so you might have something specific in mind. But that something specific in mind might have deeper roots, and that's where we need to discover what's happening there.
100%. Well, Rich, where can people reach you? I know you have a website and all that,
I'm
but
Googleable. I'm on Google.
Google.
LockStock Cybersecurity, Cybersecurity Louisville, all those things. I've got a website, lockstockcyber.com, and pretty easy to find me.
Gotcha. So yeah, guys, if you ask yourself the question, if something bad happened, or if I have an employee that clicked a sketchy email, and now we think some of our data is out there, we want to obviously prevent that. And Rich does things that are bigger and better than that, but that's probably the smallest thing. But if you want to know your threats or solutions and things in cybersecurity, get with Rich and pick his brain and see if he can help you out. And again, this has been Built in the Bluegrass. Rich, I appreciate you coming on and distilling some knowledge into us. Like I said, it's a very different kind of topic, but that we usually go over. But I think it's, especially in today's age, if people are paying attention to all this AI stuff that's now coming through, we don't know exactly how that's always going to be used. So the cybersecurity needs to be at least on people's minds. I don't think it is that much unless you're obviously a bigger company, but even the small guys need some cybersecurity, if nothing else, to protect their business, but to make it your business more fluid to get contracts and work with other people and make more revenue and income. So I think it's great. Is there any parting words, Rich, you want to leave with the Built in the Bluegrass audience?
Thank you for having me, Tommy. I hope some of this information was valuable. If it piques your curiosity, feel free to reach out to Tommy or myself. Would love to help.
Awesome. Thanks, Rich. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Tommy. Take care.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Built in the Bluegrass. We hope you're leaving this episode with a better understanding of the cool stuff made in Kentucky. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show. This way you'll get notified as new episodes become available. Until next time.